are 613 laws in the Jewish code. And since there are so many, it'd be kind of hard to concentrate them all at once. So there was a debate back in Jesus' time at least to find out, well, which one should we concentrate on? Which is the most important? Which is what the scribe comes and asks Jesus today in all earnestness so far as we know. So, which is the most important? And Jesus says very clearly and without hesitation, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The whole law is built on these two. In fact, as he says them, it's like the two sides to one coin. And really, they're one law. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, pretty clear. Any questions about how clear that is? No? Good, great. Simple. It's not simple because we don't know in all circumstances, and perhaps sometimes in many, exactly what the best and most loving thing is to do. And sometimes our best efforts at loving someone else, reaching out to them, being a positive presence for them, can be misunderstood and wrongly taken, and instead of helping them and healing them and encouraging them, we end up hurting them, and we just don't know. It can be rather confusing to love how to love God, others, and self. Let's take our relationships with each other. It can be rather confusing because we're trying to figure it out, and what's in one person's mind might be taken exactly the opposite way. I've got an example. I have lots of them, but I have one example. This goes back a lot of years, so that I'm not likely to hear this, okay? So it's when I was in grad school during the summer. And it was a Catholic college, and we went to class together. We ate in the cafeteria together. We worshiped together in liturgy. And so we got to know each other. Not, casual friends. We developed and got to know some people. And there was this one woman that I would see here and there. And one night, after dinner in the cafeteria, we just went for a walk. And we were talking and ended up sharing a few personal things about ourselves, a little bit more than that. And then after about a half an hour, 45 minutes, it was time to get back to studying. So I gave her a little half hug like this, and then she went to her dorm and I went to mine, and that was it. Except the next day, never mind what I'll call it. So this woman, she was a religious sister. She comes back to me the next day and takes me aside a little bit and says, I was offended yesterday when you gave me that hug. I did not give you permission to hug me. I'm like, ooh, I'm sorry. I thought it was appropriate, but I'll take your word for it. It wasn't, and I'm sorry I didn't mean anything by it, and it won't happen again. That's great. About a week later, we were at a special liturgy, and at that liturgy, we came to the sign of peace, and I was with people I knew, and this sister was there too, and so I was shaking hands, but mostly I gave hugs because all those people were around me. And then when I came to her, I shook her hand. I think I learned my lesson. So great, I'm doing fine. The next day, she takes me you know what's coming, don't you? The next day, she takes me aside and said, how is it that you can hug everybody else and not me? Because you told me not to? I don't know. I have much more recent examples than that, but I know for sure that I'm not the only one who gets in this situation. And I'm not talking just about friends, I'm talking about spouses as well. Am I wrong at that? You can miscommunicate and hurt each other, and all right, we get it wrong too often. Or in loving ourselves. Loving yourself is what Jesus tells us to do. In fact, some would say it's pretty hard to love other people if you don't love yourself, because then you don't know how to love. Okay, so but when loving ourselves, what's the most loving thing to do? I think having this second piece of chocolate cake will be the most loving thing to do. And later on, I'm going to have some beer and popcorn as I'm watching the game, and that's going to be loving too. Maybe it is, but I keep doing that, and that's the weight I'm carrying, then it's not going to be very loving. Is it? Nope. And that's how it's, so we don't know how to love ourselves and carry through on it. And the last thing is loving God. Well, it's pretty easy. You love God, obey the commandments, obey all the rules. Okay, we can do that, but it says with your whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I'm telling you right now that obeying the rules doesn't quite do it for God, because you could do that and not have any heart in it at all. And so how do you go about loving God? What's that look like? So there's the problem. It's clear, but it's not simple, and it's sometimes hard to figure out. So how's the way out of the problem? One way, one key is this. What both Moses and Jesus say. When they say, "Hear, O Israel. Hear, O people. The Lord is God, the Lord alone." What happens in Deuteronomy is that this is just at the end of their wandering 40 years through the desert. You're just about to go into the promised land the next day. So Moses is reminding them. He said, "The Lord your God." And before this, you'll see, he brought you through out of slavery in Egypt, through the desert, and worked all these miracles. And now he's sending you in a land that he promised, the land flowing with milk and honey. Okay, he's done all these things for you. He's always been with you. Now, what you need to do in response to all the good things he did for you is to love God in return. With your whole heart, mind, soul, and strength. So there he says. That's when he says this. So hear this. You see all this. So here is what we need to do. And of course, Jesus says the same thing. Hear, O Israel. Hear, O people. That God has loved us, does love us, and will love us. Hear that. Not only hear it, but listen to it in terms of taking it to heart. So, we need to do that in our daily life, don't we? It's like, are all the good things that happen to us just coincidences? That I really need something, and I'm looking for something, and it just kind of happens to show up. I really need to talk to somebody, and somebody calls me. I don't know if it ever happened to you. It happens to me. Or there's a situation which could have turned out very badly, and it didn't. It turned out well. Is God involved in that or not? Learning to hear, to listen and take to heart would say, God is more involved in my life than I ever gave him credit for. Praise God. In fact, that's the base of this stewardship stuff right here. It's a way of living. Stewardship, the very foundation of it is knowing, recognizing that God has loved us generously. Has, does, and always will. And from that, we respond to love God with our whole heart, mind, soul, and strength. And in loving one another, we need to hear what it is that other person needs, to see that and take it to heart. Sometimes what we think they need, they don't need. And when I was working in marriage encounter, this kind of a situation was often enough talked about, where the couples would say, well, one would say, well, I need some more physical affection from you. And the other would say, well, I need more verbal communication from you. Well, how do you solve that? Well, why don't you sit down and talk? What does it mean to you? What's your hesitation in either area? What does that mean? And when there is a hurt that happens, you might say, what you said really hurt me. Did you intend to do that? I have a bias that says most of the time you really don't intend to hurt one another. And so if you ask that question, it's like, you might get this back. No. I love you. Why would I do that? I came out badly. I'm sorry. We got to work it out. We need to learn how to love one another. I don't care if you've known each other for 10 days or 100 years. Because things change. Our needs and our wants change. And who we are changes as well. And loving self. It isn't just doing what feels good, because that second piece of chocolate cake might feel good for the moment. But enough of them and it won't. The body needs to move. For example, we need to listen to our bodies, to our feelings, to our emotions, and we need to figure out what it is that we need to, in a healthy way, love ourselves. When I plan on exercising in the morning, I put out my shoes and my workout gear in my chair next to my bed. Did that yesterday morning. I woke up yesterday and it was going to be a busy day because I had a funeral at 11 o'clock. So I had to finish the preparation for that homily, and I had to finish the preparation for the Mass homily, and then I had your confessions, and I had to then say Mass, and it's like, it's too busy. I don't know if I want to exercise. Besides, I didn't want to get out of bed. But then I got out of bed, put on my gear, and went for my exercise walk. Later on in the day, I'm feeling good. Yeah, I'm glad I did that. What it takes to love ourselves is some healthy, gentle self-discipline, doesn't it? Which may not, in the exact moment we're starting it, feel good, but we know it will feel good later. That's the opposite of sin, Feels good in the moment, we regret it later. It's not going to feel good right away, but I know it will later. It's how we learn to love ourselves. Hear, O Israel, hear, O people, the Lord is God. Come to know his presence in our life and to love him in return out of gratitude. To know that we need to learn how to love one another throughout our entire lives. We become more sensitive and attentive to those around us, those we don't even know, to know how to love ourselves. As we sang in the last verse of the opening song, we need to be learners in God's school of love.